I'm glad that, first of all, that this story lasted an extra day with the suspension because I really wanted to talk about it. So Nikola Jokic got 1 game. Markieff Morris just got a fine. Jimmy Butler also got a fine for yapping his mouth, which, by the way, was twice as much as Aaron Rodgers' fine was for violating protocols. Look, I think, and here's my first take on this, which is a little hot. If it was the other way around, Markieff Morris would have gotten 3 games. And that's based on not even a race thing. It's just based on like reputation and tough guy stuff. Like the Morris brothers have been tough guys their whole career. And if it would have been the other way around, especially a retaliatory thing, then it would have been probably 3 games to none in the other direction. The other thing that's kind of annoying is when you hear, whatever it is, Charles Barkley, whomever, everybody say, hey, well, Markieff Morris started it. Since when did the NBA only penalize the guy who started the fight? Actually, the NBA is pretty opposite. They normally catch the guy who retaliated and give him more of an offense. You're supposed to keep your cool in that spot. And Nikola Jokic said this, if he doesn't retaliate, it's probably not even a flagrant foul on Markieff.
Right.
And if you look at sort of the rules of what the flagrant fouls are, it wasn't really up near the head and neck. You could argue it was a little unnecessary, obviously, but it would have been a borderline flagrant foul call. And so, no, I think Jokic elevated this into something that deserved suspension. And if, again, I look at it as if it were anybody else, if it were not the MVP, but just a reserve off the bench in some other game, you're talking multiple games, in my opinion, especially because Markieff was actually down there and hurt for a while. So I think they shorted the suspension there, and I thought Markieff Morris is being painted as the bad guy in all this, and I think that's nonsense.
June.
Yeah, I think it's one of those situations. I think Izzy's pretty spot on in that Jokic escalated this to a point where like it didn't need to go. Like obviously it was not a good foul for Markieff Morris, but like it did not require him coming up behind him and hitting him on the back, hitting him from behind when he's not looking. I think the thing that I thought was interesting about this situation was seeing how Jokic's brothers responded on Twitter and the fact that they created a Twitter account just to respond to Markieff Morris, and that there is no Twitter avatar for that account makes it all the more like terrifying and intimidating. Where it's just like, we didn't need to look at social media. We just created an account called the Jokic Brothers, and we have no profile
just in
picture.
case. Let's read this just in case people can't read it. It's responding to Mook Morris. That's not Markieff. That's his brother Marcus. You should leave this the way it is instead of publicly threatening our brother, ! Your brother made a dirty play first. If you want to make a step further, be sure we will be waiting for you. Jokic brothers.
AKA,
they signed it.
Catch
they
me
signed
outside.
The trade.
How about that? Okay? This is where this story moves into my realm in the hands community that I'm very familiar with, where things get a little loose. Now, there's a lot of jokes about all these brothers and who's going to be doing what and who could be doing this and doing that. Let me explain something to you. The Jokic brothers are not in the NBA, which means they don't have to worry about the court. And you know who else is involved in the Morris family? They got 3 whole other brothers that are not the twins, in case y'all didn't know that, all right? This has All-Star Weekend altercation waiting to happen written all over. I'm not even joking about that. As for the actual situation on the court. Now, there's a part of this that I feel is a little bit unfair to Nikola, but it's true. It's that, yo, man, you are huge. So when you choose to do things like that to smaller players, I think there is a level of judgment that is to be taken to that, which is like, hey, man, your likelihood of hurting somebody is much higher if you are a larger human being hitting a smaller person. It's to the point that...
And cheap shotting.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. On a cheap shot when nobody's even prepared. And I think that also... I think he deserved more than 1 game, but the only reason he didn't get it, not only because he was Jokic, but because he said immediately after the game, thank you, Charlie, that he messed up. He knew instantly, and he said something about it right in the moment, something we very rarely see, so I'll give him credit for that. But overall, Bush League of the highest order, is he?
I actually don't think that helps him. I think that makes it more obvious how bad of a move it was. When he immediately recognizes after watching the replay and then sees the head snap back, like there's a still frame of Markieff's head snapping back, and it just scares you. Like it makes you think as the culprit, as the person who did it, man, that could have been a lot worse. I'm bigger than that guy. heavier than that guy. I wouldn't say stronger necessarily. And I did that to him. And the other thing that bugged me, and this was also in the postgame from Nikola, he said it. He said, I could see him coming on that foul, right? He didn't expect it to be as hard a foul, but he saw Markieff coming. Obviously, the other way around was not true. And so I just think because he's Nikola Jokic and because he was nice about it and because he is a likable personality and because he's the MVP, that it was probably all taken into consideration the same way it's taken into, or had been taken into consideration in the past with Ron Artest, Metta World Peace, or or any other person that had that level of history. And so on the opposite end. And so, yeah, I think they shorted him, like I said, a game or two. I think the Jokic brothers, I think that part's interesting because I feel like Nikola will just ask them to calm the bleep down. Like, don't make it any worse. It's going to be worse for me. Even though, Charles Barkley said it was Markieff Morris's fault. When do we all go by the Bible of Charles Barkley? I do believe that he's going to have them calm down a little bit, and that November 29th game won't be as intense, at least in terms of like two Jokic brothers in the stands with the cameras on them every time he gets fouled.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.